Hello, welcome to another beautiful episode of Healthy Living, reaching you from the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Olamide Al-Hassan. Now, stroke is a major global health concern with significant implications for both individuals, patients, and healthcare systems. Stroke is a critical neurological emergency that demands continuous improvement in its diagnosis and treatment methods. This debilitating and often life-altering medical condition knows no bounds, affecting individuals of all ages, genders, and walks of life. Its capacity to strike suddenly with minimal warning makes understanding its nature and its potential consequences of paramount importance. Thank you for joining us once again on Healthy Living today as we delve into the complex interplays of factors that underlie stroke to uncover the strategies that can empower individuals to stand up to these silent threats, preserving the precious gift of brain health for a brighter, more vibrant future with Pharmacist Rotimi Alamojin. But before he joins us, let's take a look at some of our health roundup stories for this week. You're welcome once again to the studio, Pharmacist Rotimi Alamojin.
Thank you very much.
How are you doing today?
Fine.
All right, so because we're looking at what stroke is, could you please help us shed more light on what it means?
Okay, generally we refer stroke as a medical emergency. Emergency in the sense that if it's not taken care of immediately or help is not rendered at that point in time, it is time dependent. It can lead to deaths, and a lot of complications can actually come from having stroke. And that is why we refer to it as a medical emergency, because it is time dependent. The longer a patient experiencing stroke stays, the more difficult it is to actually manage, and the more complicated it's going to be in the long run. So basically, stroke is just simple in layman's language. It's reduced oxygen to the brain, basically. And what takes oxygen to the brain is the blood. That's what carries nutrients and oxygen throughout the body system through the brain too. So when there's a blockage, or when there's anything that causes a reduction in the amount of oxygen that gets to the brain, it is that part of the brain that is not getting enough supply basically shuts down. And when it's shut down, the brain basically controls everything that happens in the body system. So once that part of the brain is controlling, once it's not getting enough supply of oxygen that helps it to carry out its day-to-day activity and the nutrients, it shuts down. The whole part of that body of the system. That's why you see you can have partial stroke, you can have full stroke, you can have a part of your body not working while the other part is working, because it's just a portion of the brain that has been affected or not getting enough supply that caused the paralysis or whatever the patient is having. So it's something that we should really talk about and increase awareness. I think the incidence is reducing with time because people are getting more educated, people are getting more informed about this disease condition. So the awareness is getting better, and people are more aware of what stroke actually is.
True, because before now, people just believe that this person has stroke, scammer. A lot of movies have actually created an impression that stroke is like a spiritual thing. Now, listening to you and hearing that sometimes shortage of oxygen in the brain can actually lead to stroke. So what are the other causes that can actually lead to stroke?
Okay, basically, a lot of causes that can actually lead to stroke. We have the ones we refer to as physical, and we have the ones that we refer to as medical.
Okay.
We call them risk factors, things that can actually lead to a disease condition, a patient having a disease condition. The one we refer to as physical, that is man-made, that you can cause by your own hands, or you can make it to have stroke. One of them is heavy drinking. Those that drink a lot, it can actually lead to stroke. That's why we advise people to cut down on their drinking. Not because yes, it's good to socialize, it's good to drink, but at least too much of everything is always bad. People keep saying that.
Drinking could lead to stroke. That
yes,
sounds
it can.
Almost impossible.
It is. It leads. It's one of the major reasons itself. Can lead to stroke. The other part of it is those that are obese, those are heavyweight. You have heavy body tissue. So that's why we always advise people to go to the gym. Make sure if you're on the high side, you're on the plus side, you're obese. You've checked your body mass index and you're already told you're on the big side, overweight already. You should make sure you try and do your possible best to cut down on it. These are things that we can work on our own. The medical aspect of it are the ones that we have high cholesterol. That is why you see a lot of medical people advise when you're getting older, cut down on the amount of meat you eat, red meats, because they are actually one of the sources of high cholesterol, and these are things that can actually block the blood vessels that will reduce the oxygen flow to the brain. Other ones, hypertension, BP. If you have high BP, if you're taking a lot of medications those are already on BP drugs, those are taking plenty of we call them anticoagulants, drugs that helps to thin the blood, to reduce the thickness of the blood, helps the blood to flow better. Yes, they are supposed to help you to make your blood flow better, to avoid stroke, but when taken in excess, it can also lead to stroke.
Really?
Yes. So that's why it's always good. We always advise people, don't just take BP medications on your own, and don't just stop BP medications on your own.
Oh,
yes.
You can't take and you can't stop on your own.
Because
so if you stop, you can have that kind of risk.
It can also cause you other disease conditions that can come with it. Then those that have diabetes too, that's another risk factors. So if you're a diabetic patient, you should be more careful, because you're at risk of having stroke, because most times we call them twin brothers, diabetes and hypertension, because most times if you have diabetes, there's a high tendency that you might come down with hypertension, and if you have hypertension, in the long run, there's a high tendency that you might also come down with diabetes. So they call them twins most times. So if you're already having diabetes, you should be very careful. There's a high tendency that you might also be having BP, which can also lead to stroke. Yeah.
Wow.
So these are just a few of some of the risk factors that can actually lead to.
Okay, so I want to believe that there's always a build-up before it gets to stroke.
Yeah.
So what are these build-ups? What are the signs and symptoms that once it's coming, people need to be aware and be very conscious, because it can lead to stroke? What are those build-ups? Okay,
basically, we have 2 to 3 major types of strokes. Now, the first one, which we call ischemic stroke, is the one that comes with reduced blood vessel. Your blood vessel is like a tap. When you have a tap, when we still do it as adults, when we want to wash your car and use your hand to reduce the space in the
pressure of the water from the pipe.
It increases the pressure of the water, because you're using your hand to reduce the space, the pipe space. So it happens in that's something that happens in your blood vessels when you have high cholesterol, or you have someone that has high fatty meals in your system. Yes. That's a way of reducing your blood vessels, which reduces the amount of blood that gets to the brain, which, like I said before, the blood is what carries oxygen to the brain. So once the blood vessels is reduced, you are at risk of having what we call the ischemic stroke. Then we have the hemorrhagic one. The hemorrhagic one is the one that has to do with rupture of your blood vessels. Now that has to do with, that's why it comes usually with those that have BP already.
Okay.
Now, because what we call high blood pressure, there's pressure, the pressure of your blood is high.
It's high. Yeah.
So once the blood pressure is too high for the blood vessels to handle, it ruptures, it breaks, thereby leaking blood into the brain. Okay. That's what leads to what we call hemorrhagic stroke. So those ones are usually caused by when you have high blood pressure, or by trauma. Maybe you have an accident and then you hear somebody having internal bleeding or something like that in the brain. Those are what leads to hemorrhagic stroke. Then the third one is the one that we call the transient ischemic stroke. It's like the first one, but it happens for a very short period of time, maybe 2 minutes, 5 minutes. It just happens, and then you get yourself back. The system restores itself.
There's 2 minute stroke.
Yes.
How does that even happen? Okay,
it's something like you just experience a shortage of blood to the brain. Somebody just faints, or you're talking, an adult is talking, and at some point it just starts slurring for a few minutes, maybe you can even for some seconds, and then the speech goes back to normal again.
Is it the same as the numbness of the leg that
It
happens
happens too, yes.
sometimes? And
It's,
maybe
those are part of the
what's
symptoms.
that other one again that happens? What is it called? A lot of pregnant women actually experience it. Muzzle pull. Are they similar?
Yeah, they are somehow similar to
Okay.
some of the symptoms that you get when you are predisposed to stroke, and that is most of these ones now comes with what we call the transient. Transient in the sense that you experience the symptoms for a very brief period, and then it
It's
stops.
moving.
So you feel fine, but it is a pointer, and that's why we advise persons, especially elderly patients, when you have such symptoms surrounding you, you experience it once or twice, it's always good to get yourself checked out. Don't just believe that because your body has restored back to normal, you're fine. You might not be fine. It's just a predisposing, it's telling you that something is about to happen. It might just be a risk factor for you to have a full-blown stroke in the long run. So you see somebody just talking, or so at the point you just feel that your eye is blurry, you can't see properly again. It's not like you don't have any eye issues before.
People say it's hunger now. They'll go and drink milk.
It's not hunger.
I've seen situations where people think it's hunger.
Some of these things is not hunger. That's the truth. Some of these things is not hunger. It's just what we call it transient. It just happens because there's a shortage of blood going to the brain at that period of time. Yes, your immune system can just kick in immediately and make it fine, but it is a pointer that you should be careful. The full-blown stroke might just be around the corner, and we should be very, very careful. So those are some of the symptoms that we get, like you want to mention. You know, notice numbness, maybe your hand. You just notice that some of your fingers, you can't use them very well at some point. Later, they feel fine again. We don't have to. Sometimes you don't even have to visit the hospital or visit the pharmacy before you feel better. You don't have to give you any medication, but it's their pointers. Maybe to your leg, to your hand, you feel some numbness. You feel, like I said, the blurry vision. Sometimes it comes with vomiting. So
Stroke,
yes,
vomiting.
yes, those are some of the earlier symptoms that
Wow.
you can actually get. Try the ones that come with headaches. Generally, when you have IBP, one of the common symptoms you have is the headaches. But there are some headaches that they come very hard, and then you start getting vomiting or diarrhea with it. You should know that those are simple. Not on a normal, you just think it's maybe you've had something that is disturbing your stomach, but they are also pointers to stroke. So you can easily mistake them for some other disease conditions, and you would think you're fine. You take anti-diarrhea drugs and all that, and you'll be fine. But you don't know something's already cooking underneath in your system. So we need to be very careful when we have some of these general symptoms, and then get ourselves checked out, so that, especially for elderly patients.
Yes.
Now you know you're ready, because stroke usually most times you get them. These are elderly patients they are more predisposed. Age also is one of the risk factor. Yes, okay. Age, because once you're getting to 50, 55, you're more predisposed to them. Because why? A lot of those people at that age have a lot of inactivity. They don't really do much. Sit down. Some of them have drivers that drive them. They get to work, sit down all hours of the day, just sign papers. No, they're not even sign anything. They just go to work, chill, come back home.
Some are even retired.
Some of them are even retired. Yes. So do less. They really don't do anything, and then with that, your blood clots, your blood vessels are there. Your fatty tissue, fatty parts of your body are not breaking down, because you're not doing any activity to actually help them break down. They're just there, accumulating, and then somehow they find the fatty layers find themselves into your bloodstream, blocking your blood vessels. So these are, once you know you are towards that age and you're experiencing some of these funny symptoms that are coming to your body, and then they resolve, you should get yourself checked out, so that it doesn't turn out to full-blown stroke in the end.
Now, that's something that just struck me from this explanation you gave, which is the fact that it could even affect the eye vision. A lot of people don't know that stroke actually affects. The first thoughts when people talk about stroke is it affects your hands and your legs. People don't even look at the eyes as a part that stroke can actually affect. So I want you to please tell us some of the other parts of the body that stroke can actually affect, that we may not even think that, and it's not glaring to us. Okay,
generally, like I said, the brain, as the way the brain is designed, is divided into two parts, the left and the right hemisphere. That's what we divide the brain into. So each part of the brain has what they actually control. The right part has what it controls, the part of the body that it controls. The left side is usually the one that controls the speech, our writing, our thinking. So most times people that have stroke usually experience damage from that particular part. That's why you see that those ones are the ones that are more common. Now, it doesn't rule out, because the brain controls every part of our body. So anything that makes the brain to shut down can affect any part of your body actually, and that is why it is there. We said it is time conscious, because the more the brain receives the shutdown or does not receive the oxygen that helps it to do its own job, the fuel that helps it to do its own job, the longer it stays shut down, the more damage it causes in your system. So it can actually affect any part of your body.
Let's call it the engine room.
Exactly, it's the engine room basically. That's what the brain is. So whatever that causes the shutdown can affect anything, depending on what part of the body that part of the brain is actually controlling. So it's as simple as that. It can affect your speech, can affect your blood, your vision, can affect your hand, can affect your leg, can affect anything. So that's why you say it's a medical emergency. It's an you want to see somebody you're suspecting, and you tell the person to read the phrase, and the person starts, and maybe towards the end the person's speech is not clear again. Those are pointers for the person.
Okay, but can children be born with stroke? You know, I'm looking at children with imbecilic features.
Yeah.
Could they be related to stroke? Because sometimes it affects their speech, the way they walk, the way they compose themselves.
Okay. Yes, it can. Though there are other conditions that can also cause those things that you're talking about now. A child having imbecile tendencies or qualities or characters after the child is born. Yes, but often than not, what you're talking about now, stroke, can also occur in children, because there was a post I was watching yesterday evening, and the woman has a child that is more like an imbecile, having neurological issues. Child cannot sit, child cannot stand, child cannot talk, child cannot see.
Cannot sit, cannot stand,
cannot talk, cannot see.
How does the child cope?
Is just
lying down.
Just lying down, just there, cannot do anything for himself.
Oh
the that child should be close to 7 to 8 years now. So, and the mother was trying to explain some of the processes, what happened during childbirth and everything. And one of the things I picked out was, during the childbirth, the woman was in labor, was having contractions, and the doctor was like, it's not time yet for the woman to give birth. It was the nurse that noticed that the head of the child was coming out, and the doctor was still delaying when the nurse went to call. So there was a lot of back and forth while the child's head was already coming out. So basically, the cervix of the woman was causing pressure to the neck of the child.
Oh my God.
Basically, that is reducing oxygen blood flow to the brain of the child.
Oh goodness.
So indirectly, the child is having a stroke.
Oh.
Because there's no blood flow to the brain. Apart from other neurological issues, or minor errors that came with the child ended up being an imbecile. So those are some of the examples that you can see. So a child can actually have a stroke during childbirth if it's not properly handled. So that's why, as medical professionals, we're always advised to be at the best at your job and be very careful, because that child's life now is basically indirectly ruined. There's nothing you can do you can do to help that child.
Honestly, this is almost overwhelming, because a lot of times the first things that come to people's mind is stroke cannot happen naturally to anybody.
Yeah, just like we were saying earlier, that kind of child, now, even though in our advanced and more civilized world that we are now, we are more educated now, such a child, they will say it's village people that turn the child to an imbecile. Not knowing that these are from human errors from the hospital.
Wow, so unfortunate. But then let's talk about how individuals can mitigate this risk of strokes.
Yeah, some of the ways we can actually do our own part is what I think I mentioned them earlier, and some of them is actually making sure you're active, especially for our aged parents, those are elderly. Make sure you're not redundant. You are retired does not mean that you should not take care of yourself. That you are retired, yes, you're supposed to be resting. They will tell you, use my time. I'm supposed to be resting. I've done my work. No, because of your health, you're supposed to be still be active, no matter how small. For patients that I see from time to time in my pharmacy, I'll tell them, even if it's just evening walks, take them. I know the environment, our society might not be as safe as it should, but if you can carry one of your grandchild or one of your child, let's do go together. Or your neighbor's child that is around, please, let's join me. Let's stroll together. 20-30 minutes, you're back to your house. You can do it in the evenings when everybody is still around. No, don't have to be dead of the night or early morning hours. It can be when people are still moving around and people are doing their daily. People can see you so that you can
For safety reasons.
for safety reasons. Yeah, for security reasons, you can make it such a time. So make sure you're not as redundant. Those that drink heavily, it's a social thing to drink and all that. The truth is, it does more harm than good to your system in the long run. Smoking too is one of the risk factors. That those that smoke heavy smokers, they are also risks at having stroke. So these are some of the things that we can do on our own parts and make sure that we cut down some of these excesses to then eating issues of eating red meat. I think we can't overemphasize that. We've been talking about it over the years. I think people are getting more enlightened about eat of red meat. Yes, it's good when you're younger. You eat the red meat, high cholesterol. It's good for your system at some point because you have, as a young man, you burn it off. As a young lady, you burn it off because of brain work, physical work. You burn a lot of calories. Yes. But once you're getting older, it's not so safe for you because you're doing less of your brain work, you're doing less of physical activity. So you really burn these fats away from your system. So it's not too safe for you. You can do more of the fish and do more of other less foods that have a lot of these calories. That would egg, not too good for an elderly person because you don't really need them. They do more harm than good in your system. Egg.
So all the enjoyment that people think they're enjoying now,
it's not really enjoyment. No, the truth is, if you go for these parties of well-enlightened people, you will find most of these things there.
But if you go to Amala joint, you'll find a lot.
Yeah, you find because what we feel we are enjoying, we see it as enjoyment because of our own level of thinking and understanding. But people that are well-enlightened and people that are top class, the high class of the society, you can't see them have a party and have all these things. It's not possible. They will have it there maybe because of low class, middle class people that will be around. But you won't see them go there and eat it. Even if they are going to eat, they won't take much. Just maybe bite food and they are gone. They've left it. You wonder, this man will just waste food. It's not like he's wasting food. He knows what he's doing. He's not wasting food.
Wow.
He's well enlightened, and that's why you can see him take a full chicken. He will just take a bite and drop the rest. He knows what he's doing. It's not like he wants to waste it.
All right.
It's because of his own health.
Let's go on a quick break. All right, viewers, let's go on a quick break. When we return back, Pharmacist Rotimi Alamojin will still be in the studio. Stay with us. Back, viewers, we're still discussing stroke with Pharmacist Rotimi Alamojin. All right, sir, thank you so much for coming here once again.
Thank you very much.
So, since we're still discussing this issue of stroke, let's look at some of the aspects of treatments. What treatment options are available for stroke?
Okay, basically, once it has already occurred as stroke, it makes it complicated. That is why we said it's a medical emergency, in the sense that once
Before you take us into treatment now, I just remembered something. You said it is important to take care of it after the warning signs.
Yes.
So how soon after warning signs should one, consult doctors?
Okay, as immediately as possible. That's the best way I can put it. As soon as you can get the person to the hospital, the better.
Okay.
Now, for a patient that is still having the transient symptoms, that's not serious ones, it comes and then you feel better. There's no long-lasting damage. That's the only difference between the transient and the other types of strokes. Because the transient, it occurs, but it doesn't leave any lasting damage to
Okay.
the body system. So you're still fine. All your systems are working fine. Your hand is working fine. Your head is working fine. Your mouth is working fine. Your eye, everything is working perfectly back after you have that transient one. But the other ones, the hemorrhagic and the ischemic itself, there's no way they occur. It will leave a damage. That's the difference between the three of them, the two other and the transient. So
They must leave damage.
they must
in the
leave
body.
damage. There's no way you want to do it that they will not leave damage.
Okay, so that
Then
means once somebody just has a warning sign or something,
it's better.
they never get better.
There's those are where treatments now coming.
Okay.
I'm talking of you were asking for when they should see a doctor.
Yes.
The best time to see a doctor is when it has not leave the damage, because the stress of even fixing the patient, some never even get better. Some it's management for life. Some, yes, with therapy, with drugs, they get better. But some, as I said, it is time dependent. It now depends on the level of time the blood supply was short from the brain. We can't tell. Everybody's system is different. Some will have just 5 minutes shots and it's something else. Some will have that 5 minutes and it is recoverable for them. So it's time dependent and dependent on the person's anatomy and the way the body system works for each person. So there's no particular time you can peg on either. If you have 5 minutes shortage, or you have 10 minutes shortage and you're fine, or you have 15 minutes shortage and then you're fine. It can be dependent on the person, the patient actually. So for people that are having that transient, having the on and off symptoms, that is the best time to actually see a doctor.
Okay.
To make sure that everything is actually fine. If you need to be placed on anticoagulants to make your blood flow better, if you need to be placed on, check your BP to be sure that your BP is fine, that you're not having BP issues already, because some people walk around. I've had a lot of patients that when they walk in the pharmacy, you check and you're seeing BP of 220, and the man will tell you, the man will even be laughing that, "Ah, guy, I'm fine, Joe. Don't me the walk around since morning. I don't have a headache. I don't have." Yes, you will have you will not have a headache. You'll be fine. You're walking around.
So it's possible to have very high blood pressure
And you'll be
without
fine.
feeling
We're not feeling
any sort of
anything. Yes,
discomfort.
it's possible.
Wow.
Very possible.
Isn't that risky though?
Very risky? That's what we're saying, that once you're getting to a certain age, it is expedient that you make sure you have a routine check. BP checking.
How often is routine check?
Routine check depends on what you like. For the BP, it can be every week, it can be 2 weeks. You're checking it. It's free. Walk into any pharmacy, tell them you want to do your BP, you want to check your BP. No, but no BP pharmacy will bill you for.
It's even free.
But
So why are we not
pharmacy will
doing
bill
it?
you for checking your BP. It's just for you to make yourself available. So far, I've not seen any pharmacy that bills anyone for BP check. So these are some of the things we just take them for granted. That's the simple truth. You can buy the machine and
something
check
like free. We cannot even go and get
you
ourselves
understand?
checked.
So if it's once a week, just weekends, you can even make it a weekend. Saturday, you're at home, you're chilling. In the evening, you stroll to any pharmacy, you check. They tell you you're fine. Okay, I'm good. At least that one, your mind is off it again. Next week again, you check. It doesn't cost you anything. It's free. So those are some of the routine checks we're supposed to be checking once you're getting older, and you know you're getting to some certain age bracket. You should be checking these things. Your sugar level, those ones you might need to pay for them, but average of 500 naira, 1,000 naira maximum in pharmacy.
And maybe now that everything has skyrocketed, you'll be
because
like
of cost of it's possible.
double the price.
Yeah, but I know it's not
still within affordable.
It's still affordable compared to what drugs you have to buy when it's now not uncontrollable because you've not been checking over time. You get so these are some of the things that we take a lot of people for granted. So you check your BP regularly, make sure you're eating right. Not because you have money to eat everything, you feel you can buy anything and eat. Yes, it's your money, it's your body, but they all have repercussions for these things that we do. So those are just some of the things.
All right, let's talk about the treatments.
Yeah, basically the treatments, physiotherapy is very, very important at the end of the day, because most of these patients that come down with stroke, they end up having a lot of to have to do a lot of physio, because to put them back on track, speech therapy.
It goes as far as affecting speech.
Yes, that's what I said. When one of the symptoms is you see somebody talking, and in the process of talking, you start being slurry. The speech is not clear any longer. The person is talking as if a child that is just growing up, that is learning to talk. So that's when you start noticing some of these their speech, clear as it should. Those are one of the symptoms of having stroke. So speech therapy is very, they would have definitely, the patient will have to go, because a lot of times people that have stroke always come down with affects their speech most times, apart from the use of the arm and the leg. It affects their speech most times, because it's almost the same hemisphere of the brain that controls those functions of the body. So you end up having almost all of them together, being denied the access to most of them. So this therapy is important. Then when you see a doctor or a pharmacist, they will definitely help you, put you on the right track for medications, for those that need to be on medications, to help the blood flow better, to manage the underlying cause that led to, because most times, like I said, it is either fatty tissues or debris, death from the heart, from the body, that is actually blocking the blood vessels, reducing the space at which the blood should flow, and then in the process, if it's too much, they block the blood vessels from leading blood to the brain. So they just have a way, the drugs basically would help flush, or to make the blood vessels freer and make the blood flow better, so that the brain can receive the desired oxygen that it needs to function. So drugs will definitely do that. So they will place your medications, place the patient on medications, and then make sure the patient is fine. So for those that have already affected, caused lasting damage, then they will have to do a lot of therapy to help them regain those processes. Like I said, some get better, some they don't, because of the level of the damage that it has already caused. So it's always better to be safe than sorry in the end. So
I was thinking maybe it was something that had to do with some sort of surgery for correction and all of that.
No, not necessarily surgery. It actually depends on where the clot is. It depends on where the clot is. Now, for some persons, I've forgotten there's a particular injection that they can actually use. I don't want to start mentioning it, but people will start going buying drugs, buying injections on the
over the counter.
But there are injections that they give to such patients that are having issues with blood clots, that helps to dissolve blood clots in their system. But there's some kind of location that the blood clots will occur that will actually need surgery to remove them. And there's a kind of blood clots. Now, there's a level, there's a size of the blood clots that will also determine surgery, because there's a way the blood clots will be big. You will use drug to dissolve it, but instead of it to dissolve it totally, it will only break it down. And once it breaks it down, clot that is 1 now,
it will now
turn to maybe like 10, going, and they will flow again and go and block other places again, making things worse. So it depends on the level of the blood clots, it depends on the size of the blood clot, depends on the location of the blood clot, that will also determine whether medication will do or surgery will actually be the necessary action. That's why we said, once you're noticing some of these off and on symptoms, it's better you go to the hospital. Let them check you properly. If it's a blood clot, if it's the one that medication can undo, you place your medication at the moment, sharp. You feel better, the blood clot is dissolved, and then you can move on with your life. I mean, if it's the one that needs surgery, let them do it. It's better than you now be on wheelchair for life, or you now have to be taking medications for life. And
some people start losing their memory.
Of course, it's part of the symptoms.
Does it have any relationship with dementia?
Yes, dementia, yes, it can also be part of. It's related to what also causes stroke. Can also lead to that. Yes, because trauma, like I said, I mentioned trauma earlier. Trauma is part of. It can be any kind of trauma, can be accident trauma, or can be anything. As you know, the trauma too can lead to dementia.
Oh, really?
Yes. Start forgetting things you don't remember. Yes. So anything that has to do with something that affects the brain can actually lead to so many things, because like we said, the brain is the engine room, controls almost everything. Everything in our system, almost. There are neurotransmitters. Whatever happens, as I'm thinking it, the brain is signaling back to the brain first before it tells me, okay, what you want to say is what you are thinking in your mind. What you want to say is right. What you're saying is what you're thinking is right. I want to move my hand to the left. The brain will first send, as I'm moving my hand, my brain will first send signal to the hand. This man wants to move you Are you ready? Yeah, that's the way it communicates. So we have neurotransmitters everywhere. We have more than 1 million neurotransmitters in our system that transmits from every part of our body to the brain first to inform the brain that something wants to happen, and then the brain sends signals back that, okay, go ahead. That's what he really wants to do. That's why I can send my hand to the left and it will not go to the right, because this is what I want to do, and I've told the brain that's what I want to do. It's correct. It's very dynamic and very, very interesting part of our body.
So whilst we think we're stressing our brain, sometimes it means that it's also of benefits, because sometimes people feel like, I'm mentally stressed, there's so much I'm handling, there's this, there's that. So should we believe that somehow it's helping us when it comes to being healthy?
Yes, it helps us, but everything has its own downside to it.
Yeah.
Now, stressing your brain can be of disadvantage and it can be of disadvantage. And like the experts say, no woman has even used more than 10% of their brain, except for the Einsteins and the rest that were able to.
Even with all of these things we are going through in Nigeria, are you sure we have not even touched? Are you sure we are not even up to 60% of our brain already?
We haven't touched up to 10%. That's the same.
Are you sure you are in this country? I have to find out.
But that's how dynamic the brain actually is. It has the capacity to do so much than we can even imagine. If we are able to use up to 20 to 30% of our brain, my dear, we'll be flying. We'll be walking on waters. We'll be walking in the air. That's how dynamic the brain is. So we have not even used.
So you believe that we've not used?
We have not.
As Nigerians.
Which one is as Nigerians? Because of the stress.
It's important to re-emphasize the part.
No, stress is different from brain work, brain activity. They are two different.
But we're
things.
thinking.
Yes, we're thinking.
Calculating. We're strategizing. Like the man I met that was already complaining about the operational cost to continue to run his pharmacy. Of course, there are things he's thinking about, and he was already contemplating.
That's more of emotional.
Strategizing. It's thinking. What's
more
the
of
next
emotional,
thing?
It's more of emotional, not brain work.
Okay.
That's more of emotional stress,
Okay.
not really brain work. Brain work is you're doing research. You're making your brain to innovate. How many of us are innovative in this country? We basically do what somebody has done. We're not even innovative. We're not thinking outside the box. How many of us are thinking outside the box to think something different than what is? That is where you're stressed. That's where you're making use of your brain activity, because the brain, forcing the brain to bring something new out that has not been seen before. That's why the experts say it's only people like Einstein and the rest that have actually used their brain capacity a little bit above those 10%, because they were able to innovate things that the regular man could not think of. And that is why they say most of us have not even used up to 10%, because most of us, what do? We think we do the same thing that people have done already.
Sure.
So we are not really using the brain as we are not stressing the brain the way we see it as stress. We are not really stressed the brain. We are only putting most of the things we are doing are emotional. Just emotional stress, not really brain activity. So they are actually two different things. And I don't think we are really stressing ourselves. Where the headaches and the rest comes from is just from the stress, not really from the brain activity. It's just from the stress of emotions, basically. Build up your emotions and all that.
I agree. I totally agree with you. But now let's talk about post-stroke effects on the patients, because I feel like it holds a lot of emotional distress. So how can they cope with that post-stroke aspect of their lives when it comes to the therapy, the physiotherapy you talked about, and other aspects to help them into recovery?
Now, one of the major things with stroke is it has effect on both the patient and the caregivers. So whoever is having stroke needs maximum support from whoever is around or whoever is taking care of him or her. That's very, very important to say, because it's going to take a toll both on the patient and on whoever is the caregiver. You have to be very patient with such patients, because someone that can use his or her hands before, or that can move around before, is now suddenly on a wheelchair, cannot walk around, cannot speak things for him or herself, cannot talk the way he or she wants to talk, or say things when he or she wants to say them. So you need a lot of help from people around you, and that's why we try as much as possible to do all this sensitization and enlightenment, so that people don't get to that point where you're putting a lot of stress on yourself and people around you, and people start feeling sorry for you. That is not a time to feel sorry for the person. It's a time to be empathic with that person, understand what the person is going through, and be able to provide help for such a patient. So it comes with a lot of emotional stress too, like you said. Yes, it comes with a lot of emotional distress with the patient, with the people around. It comes with a lot of financial issues too, because therapy is not cheap. Physiotherapy is not also cheap, so drugs is not also cheap these days. So the patient has to be on a lot of medications. You also have to help the patient to take those medications, because they can't help themselves any longer because of the stroke. Yeah, so it comes with a lot of emotions, comes with a lot of economical issues, comes with a lot of physical issues, financial issues. It touches all around, all aspects of our lives at the end of the day for a patient having stroke. So it's as serious as that. I have an uncle that is also you can say it's partial, because it's not really, he just affected one of his legs. It's not that serious, though I'm sure he must have been seeing symptoms. When they took him to the hospital and it was confirmed that he's actually having partial stroke, that's when I had to sit down, because it doesn't stay close by. So when they gave me the report, that's when I sat down and I was thinking back, because he stayed with my parents for a little while when I was still smaller, before I even started thinking about going into medical. And I was able to recollect that this thing is something that he has been experiencing for more than 30 years.
Wait, okay. Now, this thing you just said now, more than 30 years,
Yes.
does it mean that people can be having the symptoms and the signs of stroke for that number of years?
Yes.
And they won't come down to full-blown stroke until in their later life?
Yes. Like I said, it transcends once, goes off and on. Has always been that leg. From time to time, we always notice that he finds it difficult to walk straight, and that is one of the symptoms of stroke. You find it difficult, apart from arthritis and other things that also gives the same symptoms. But those are one of the symptoms that you notice, that people can use their legs very well. They find it difficult to find their balance. It's different from somebody having pain in the leg. Someone that is having pain does not stop the person from using the leg. It's just painful.
Okay.
Now, it's different from somebody finding it difficult to have balance with the leg.
With their legs. For no reason.
For no reason. It's two different things. And that is why you need someone that is actually an expert to be able to understand the differences between these things, so you don't be treating the wrong thing, giving drugs for the wrong reasons you get. So that's why I said when I got the report, I was able to sit down and think back that this thing is something that has been there. But because none of us were medically inclined, none of us actually saw it as, we just saw it as natural and or normal to him, because he has always been someone that has always found difficult to find his balance, or since I grew up to know him myself anyway. And it's up to now, just about 2-3 years ago, that it now became worse.
Wow.
So, and he didn't even still take any medical attention serious until we forced him to go to the hospital some months ago, and then they now got to notice that he's actually having partial stroke. At the point now he had to be using stick to walk because the balance became worse. That's when doctors now confirmed that he's actually having partial stroke. So things like that. So that's why I said the earlier the better. Now we have to be spending money on physiotherapy, we have to be spending money on drugs and all that. So things that could have maybe at that time
be averted.
If we had noticed it and taken him to the hospital at that time, maybe we will have. And definitely the awareness that we have now is different from what we had 20-30 years ago. So that's just how stroke can be. It can be as long as it can be in your system. The transcends ones can be going off and on, off and on. You would think you're fine. You think, like you said, the thing is you never chop. That's why
exactly. That's why you're having blurry vision.
That's why you're not balanced.
Yes.
That's why you're not eating well. That's why your legs are not strong. It might not just be. It might not just be. It might be something else.
That's how the society chooses to project it. We have lots of doctors working everywhere, doctors, and they'll just cut you and say, go and eat food. You've not eaten well, that's why you're not balanced. Instead of them to, you know.
Yeah, that's why if you get a proper medical attention, what we do is most doctors, most medical experts, what we do is we strike out. That's the sense of test. We strike out the unknown and then lead the known. That's why when you come to the hospital, you make complaints. Doctor tells you, okay, he has, mainly you're making complaint. He has like 5 different disease conditions in his head already that have the same symptoms. So what he needs to do is send you to the lab, do a test. Okay, do malaria test. Okay, do typhoid test. He knows why he's telling you to do that. He wants to strike out the other 3 that is in his head. So once those results comes out and it's those 2 that is positive, he treats you for those 2. He has already stricken out the other 3 in his head that is already having the same symptoms with those disease conditions. So that's why you need an expert. When you go to the hospital, so you complain.
They can do tests for stroke too that way?
There are scans. They can do scans. They can do scan, check for general, check for arthritis. So if a patient comes and you check for arthritic pain, are you having pain? By the time you complain, the doctor will know what you're having. The doctor will know what you're having. You're complaining of pain. You're complaining of not having balance. There are 2 different things. The doctor might decide to take care of the pain first and see whether you'll be fine.
All right.
If you don't get fine, then he takes care of other disease things that are also coming to his head too. So that's how we work.
But have there been any situation that you've seen where patients actually come down with full-blown stroke and then they become better and perfectly fine, like no traces of stroke? Have there been those cases? Personally, I haven't personally, but I know people have recovered. Who have recovered from worse. Yes, people can recover well if you have very good therapy. You have very good medications. You can actually recover from stroke, but it takes a lot of work, a lot of hard work, and probably a number of time, years, months.
Yes, it takes a lot of time. That's what I mean by hard work. Your time, your resources, energy to recover from stroke, but it's possible. It's not a death sentence.
True, I agree.
It's possible.
So what would you advise viewers when it comes to caregiving to patients of stroke?
Basically, patients.
Okay.
If you're a caregiver for maybe a relative to somebody that has stroke, patients, because the patients would definitely need a lot of that from you to be able to carry him along, to be able to care for him or her, because there's a way you care for a patient and a patient will see him or herself as a burden.
Absolutely, I agree.
And there's a way you care for a patient and the patient will see him or herself as actually a patient. There are 2 different things.
Oh.
And it actually helps the patient psychologically too. And that's where empathy comes in. There's a way you care for a patient, the patient will feel like they pity him.
Feel bad about it.
Feel bad about himself. It doesn't help the patient to get better.
Okay.
But the way you care for a patient, the patient will feel like this person is feeling my pain. This person understands what I'm going through. And then
this person cares.
Helps the patient, it cares. It helps the patient psychologically to be focused on getting better. So there are 2 different things. So at that point, what the patient needs is a lot of patience from those of us around. And those for the caregivers, the medical personnel, it's still patience, because you have to be the one to take care of them.
Absolutely.
Especially the nurses, carry them around, give them their medications, make sure they're fine, make sure they take their medications, a lot of follow-up to make sure they are doing their best, a lot of counseling to talk to them. You will definitely get better. Like I tell my patients, a lot of persons, even till now, I still have one I'm still battling with at the moment in my pharmacy. You still have a lot of wrong notion about high blood pressure. So people still find it very difficult to start taking BP medications because they feel it's a lifetime thing. And I tell patients it's not having a BP, having a high blood pressure. It's not a death sentence. It shouldn't be a lifetime thing. If you detect it early and you manage it early, it's not a lifetime thing. You can start your medication and stop. It's possible with proper taking of it, routine taking of it. If you take your drug religiously and it is discovered early, and you take your drug religiously, it's possible to stop.
Absolutely.
So we have a lot of, just to disabuse a lot of minds about a lot of things, and then sure we'll be fine.
Honestly, you've done a great job today, already even correcting some of our notions on stroke. Thank you so much, Pharmacist Rotimi Alamojin. We really appreciate your time in the studio today.
Welcome, ma.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma.
Now, viewers, you've heard it from Pharmacist Rotimi Alamojin. Stroke is not a death sentence. Early detection is key. And for caregivers, a little patience works the magic. That's how we draw the curtains on today's show. I'll see you again next week. I am Olamide Alhassan. Bye for now.